Hey there friends, Susan here at Pumpkin Hill Stampers. I have a Stampin' Show and Tell for you today, and we're going to start with scraps from a previous project. So these three little pieces of Designer Series paper come from the Perennial Lavender DSP, which was new in the spring catalog and it carried over to the annual catalog. So I had made some demo swaps back at the beginning of the year, and I had these extra pieces of DSP that were scrap. Now, I never throw my scrap away. I always save it and make something out of it eventually. So we're going to make a card today, starting with the scrap pieces. So what I do is I'm going to start with the measurements. Now, these are a floral design. They're two different papers, but they coordinate together. And the first one is 1 inch, this one is 1.5, and this one is 1 inch. And then they measure, let's see, they measure 2.5 inches tall. Okay, now so what I do is I think, okay, well I could put these together really well into just a focal image for the middle of my card. So I want to figure out how big of a mat to use. So I'm going to use my grid paper. So here at the center line at the top, it's 0 and it counts across in inches. So I'm going to put this one here, and I'm just going to give it 1/8 of an inch or half of a square on my grid sheet. And I'm going to leave that same spacing between the pieces, so there's a little bit of framing, and come across. Now, I could do the big math, right? Well, you know I'm big on math, but I'm just going to use my grid sheet. So if I put this here and I have an 1/8 inch gap around each piece, okay, top and bottom, I know I'm going to need to go across 4 inches, and then I'm going to come down 2 3/4. So I went and found a coordinating piece of cardstock. I decided to use Lost Lagoon for this one, and I've cut myself that size piece. This piece is 4 by 2 3/4. Okay, so I'm just going to mount these up onto this cardstock to start with my focal image. So I'm just going to take my liquid adhesive, add it to the back of each piece. Now you can see the back side of these coordinate pretty well too, so if you wanted to use the flip side, you certainly could do that. Now here's something I'm going to tell you. I'm going to put my card, and I'm going to center it on the center line. So it's 4 inches, so I need to go 2 and 2. And I'm going to start with the center panel. Okay, so the center panel, because this is all symmetrical, if I put the center of my center panel on the center line of my grid sheet and leave the 1/8 inch at the top and the bottom, then I can usually come in and eyeball the placement of the two on the side. Okay, that's just one way of doing it. If you want to start at one end and work across, you certainly can do that. Sometimes I do that. But this one was nice and symmetrical, so I thought, well, let's try this center line trick of building our focal point. Okay, so 3 pieces of scrap mounted on a piece of cardstock. Now we've got our focal image. Alright, so I'm going to do color and color. So I have a piece of Lost Lagoon cardstock, which is 8.5 by 5.5. I scored and folded in half. And I could just put that right on top, stick on a sentiment, and I could be good to go. But that's a little bit simple, or not quite enough effort, at least for me. But everybody makes their cards their own way. So what I did is I went and found my new Eyelet embossing folder. Okay, this pretty Eyelet embossing folder, and I ran it through my embossing machine. So I'll flip it over. So I have this great texture now as a background that focal image will pop right up on top of. Okay, so there's one way to step your card up. Then I went to my ribbon, and it's a new catalog, and I shop on a budget. And so I don't have any new ribbon that's not retired. Now I have a really pretty Lost Lagoon ribbon that is retired that would go beautifully on here. And if you have that, go ahead and use it. But I'm using another trick for you. If you're like me and you want to use coordinating ribbon, but you don't have coordinating color and you don't really have something that'll work, I simply took a scrap of 1/2 inch cardstock right out of my scrap bin. Okay, that coordinates with my Lost Lagoon. And I'm going to put that in my embossing folder again. And I just put it in on a pattern that I like. Now this one I kind of picked that Eyelet pattern where we've got the side-by-side loops. Okay, I ran that through my embossing machine, and now I have a paper ribbon. Okay, I have a paper ribbon, so everything coordinates, the texture coordinates, and I can add this as an element and just add a little more pop to my card. Okay, so all I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to put a little bit of adhesive right down on the front of my panel. I know I never do that, but sometimes we break the rules. That's just so that I have a nice line, and I'm just going to put this paper ribbon across, eyeball it for level, and press that down. Now, because it's a paper ribbon, I'm not going to try to loop behind it and tie another ribbon. If you did want to do that, you wouldn't want to adhere it, but I'm not going to do that. Now I'm just going to flip it over. Now I'm going to cut off the ends. Okay, now you could cut them off flush, okay, but sometimes it's nice, just like ribbon, to wrap it around. So I'm going to wrap it around, and I'm just going to put a little bit of adhesive on both little tabs and press those down. Okay, so that's not going to give me the cut look of the edge of a cardstock. It's going to give me the wrapped, smooth look of ribbon. Okay, smooth ribbon wrap. Okay, so now I'm going to add dimensionals to the back side. Now, one trick I do with dimensionals, all right, I'm going to put these on the top and one in the middle. But then sometimes when I wrap paper around, I'm going to use my edges. So I'm just going to cut some edge, and I'm going to overlap those on that paper ribbon that I put down, just as a little extra insurance that they won't pop off. Okay? So let me peel all those backers off. And then that's going to go right in the center of my card. Now this is a pretty basic sketch layout. You could do this with lots of different papers. You could stamp, you could do embossing, but this is a really simple one. And I actually use this one pretty often. Now I'm looking at that. I didn't put it on quite square. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and kind of pull up this side and see if I can't reposition that just a little bit. I can always cut those dimensionals off and just put new ones on, but since they're freshly down, I'm just going to try to reposition a little bit. Let's see, it's going to let me reposition. Alright, that's better. More in frame. Okay, so there is my quick and simple project for you today that we started with scraps. Just scraps. So this one, again, all the papers were from the Perennial Lavender DSP, which is in the current catalog. This one was done with the new Eyelet 3D embossing folder. Okay, now I have a couple other to share with you. I did do one with the flip side of that paper, and for this one I used one of the Basics 3D embossing folders. Okay, so nice and calm, so there's that one. And then the third one I did, I used the Distressed Tile, and I did it on Gorgeous Grape, because that was another coordinating color, so that one really pops right off the page. So, like I said, you can do this with any of your papers, any of your stamping if you want to stamp your panels instead. But I have 3 quick cards from scraps that were sitting on my table, just like that. So I hope you enjoyed this quick and easy project. I hope you'll use the sketch in your own projects, and until next time, do some fun stamping. Bye!